Namaste and welcome. Today's class is only a short one. I was thinking we did quite a strong class on Wednesday, which often, it's a good thing, but I often get little messages afterwards or people let me know that, wow, can we have something that intense that's more, not so much yin, but a more stretchy class. So I thought we'll use a little bit of a similar sequence to what we used on Wednesday. So load it up, but then look at how to release that pretty much straight away. So if you didn't do Wednesday's class, it's called strong something or other like that. I can't remember what I wrote for that, but it's all about strength in the quads and the glutes. And the glutes are a pretty good one to stretch out. There's plenty of ways to do that. So we're going to begin on the floor, so on the knees, and just setting yourself up. So if you're not comfortable on your knees like this and need a bit more padding underneath, feel free to, pop another mat or even a blanket beneath you. We're going to tuck the toes and make sure the knees are about hip width apart. We're going to come up like so. For this, I'll sort of do this so you can see the tilt of the pelvis. Rather than letting your butt stick out and your pelvis tilt forward, we're really going to try and pull the pelvis upright, the pubic bone pushes forward and really drop here. So it's not a matter of squeezing the glutes to push the pelvis forward. It's more a lengthening of the tailbone. So this stays soft, these stay soft. The pubic bone just presses forward and then we use the core. So we're trying to lift the belly I always like to say lift the hip bones up, but at the same time, just make sure your butt stays quite soft. What we don't want to do is squeeze our butt because it puts our back and our pelvis into an incline and our back is already compressed. So soft butt, long through the front of the hips, bring the hips forward so that they're right over the top of your knees. Keep checking that you're not squeezing the butt. And we're going to either reach back here. You can use your hands to make sure that your back stays long, or you can reach back like me and grab a hold of the ankles. Now there's an overwhelming urge to squeeze the glutes here, but I want you to keep them soft and passive and let the quads do the work. Maybe drop the head or lift the chin and then chin to chest and come up and drop down. And you can see how much more the quads have to work if the glutes are disengaged. And just note how that feels. And then we're going to just give a nice little release. So coming up, hips lift, and just give the butt a little wiggle. Come down. I'm going to do the same thing. Coming up, lengthening the tailbone, trying to keep the hips upright and the butt nice and soft. Lift the gaze, elbows squeeze if you're keeping your hands here. And if you grab, reach back. Resist the urge to squeeze the glutes. You can squeeze the heels towards each other, but just not the butt. And then we come back. We sink back down and a downward facing dog. Again, nice little wiggle. Take a breath here. And empty. Bend the knees, look forward, step to the front. Take the feet about hip width apart or just a little narrow. You can use a block for a guide there and bring the block maybe up in between your knees. If you don't have a block, you can imagine one's there. We're going to reach forward and lift the arms up, then bring them to the heart, because what I want you to find here is that same length. So rather than letting the butt stick out, we're lengthening the tailbone and getting nice and long. Then we're going to take the knees back. Now what happens here is our glutes fire. And what I don't want you to do is just fire up your quads and not the glutes. So get the glutes firing first. So really start to feel, if you push your knees back further, they do that. And then squeeze the adductors. So squeeze the block. And you'll feel that transfer more into the glutes. Keep lengthening the tailbone. Maybe lift the heart, but find that sustained warmth in the butt. And then let's fold to release. We're going to do that one more time. So bending the knees, get nice and long. Hands come to heart, and at the same time, I'm trying to lengthen my tailbone. My heart lifts a little, but I lengthen my tailbone, and then I squeeze the block for 3, for 2, and we release into the fold. Take the block out of the road, half lift. Heel toe the feet together, fold. Half lift here, step back, high plank. Steady yourself. And again, try and find that long lower back. So if you think of your pelvis, if you drop your belly, your butt will lift. If you pull your pubic bone towards the front, your back of the body lengthens. Drop knees, keep the back in that same shape, and lower with control. Baby cobra, inhale. And come back to downward facing dog as you exhale. Now it's just a nice reset. Shake the head, release any tension. Right leg lifts to the sky, step it forward. Coming into a crescent shape, fingertips on the floor. So the other day we were really finding how to fire this up by pulling that hip back, squaring the hips, driving the weight down into that right heel, keeping it, the back leg really fired, and trying to draw the heel at the front and the toes at the back towards the center of the mat. Take a breath. Once you feel like you've fired that up, come on up, inhale. And now see how you go at finding the glute versus the quad and evening it up so that one isn't overpowering the other. Hands to the mat or to the block, and we release. And you're just going to let yourself drop over that leg. Play around with either digging into the heel. As you see here, I've pulled the toes back. That isn't always feeling good. You know, sometimes you just want to push into the ball of the foot. So play with a few different options there and try and really square the hips up rather than letting them open. And we release, bend the knee, high to low plank, always a really nice reset. Just watch the lower back isn't dropping. And we arrive in downward dog. Deep breath in, steady breath out. Left leg lifts, and we step it forward. Come to the fingertips, square the hips up, drive the weight into that front leg, and come on up slowly. Finding the engagement of the glute first, then the quads. Smooth inhale. Slow exhale. One more breath. Hands to the blocks or the mat and fold. Really let your body sink into that. It's pretty yummy. And bending the front knee. Come through your flow. And we find our way back to downward dog and a nice little wiggle Walk the hands back towards the feet. Half lift. Imagine that block between your knees. Bend the knees and come into Utkatasana at the back of your mat. Hands to the heart. Knees pressing back. Trying to find that engagement of the glute. And forward fold. Walk the hands back out. And a nice little wiggle of the butt. Right leg lifts to the sky. Bend the knee, open up the hip and let the back heel of the left leg drop towards the floor. Look forward, sweep the right knee to the right thumb. And we're going to set up straight into a big glute stretch, half pigeon. So setting the feet, setting the hips, and trying to square the hips up. And this one, even if your hip doesn't touch the floor, which a lot of people will find, just squeeze it, the little corner of the block in there, because what I want you to find here is complete release so that there's nothing gripping. And often I start with just a corner under the sit bone so that I can really drop my guard, like really drop every muscle gripping in and around that area. And once you do that, you notice if that back knee is pointing out, just roll it so that it's right underneath and you'll find that glute a little easier. Now you can stay here. If it feels good, you can slide that out, maybe inch that back foot back a little more. Getting deeper into that stretch right up and around here. If you feel you get more of a stretch coming down, do. But for glutes, I often find staying up is where it's at. And we're going to move back to downward dog. So tuck the back foot. Lift the hips and walk through the feet. Left leg lifts. Bend the knee, open the hip, let the right heel press down. Big stretch through the back of the leg. Let yourself prepare for this. Often like that. That little grab underneath the hip. And then when I feel like I can relax, and it's like glute. Glute, I know mine often fires when it doesn't need to. And then when I want it to fire, it's like having a little nap. So we do have to get really aware of what's firing. Like even that moving my knee back, I find this guy fires up and then I've got to resettle and relax. And that dropping, letting the weight simply drop down. And when you're ready, downward facing dog again. A nice wiggle through the hips there. It's pretty yummy. Right leg lifts, bend the knee, open the hip. Bring the knee down halfway along the mat. We're going to stack the other knee behind. So they're really tight, really close. And I'm going to sit back, and for me, I like to sit on a block. And I'm going to try not to let this knee just pop up. So if I come back down and really work the knees together, keep that knee down and lift the body upright. Now just let everything settle. So this is quite extreme external rotation, but there's just a slight little bit of internal because we're in flexion right up in at the groin and the hip socket. And for this one, this leads down into a little bit of glute, but also into the hip flexors and the hip stabilizers. And we can just rock forward, unravel, downward facing dog again. And this time, left leg lifts, bring the knee down into the center of the mat, foot turns to the right, and we stack the knees and we come into this on the other side. Try dorsiflexing the feet. And just note, if this knee's popping up a long way, you might actually need to stack 2 blocks underneath. So if this was happening to me, I would come back forward, I would stack, get my hips a little higher so that my knees can stay down. And that might be where you practice this for a while. For others that will find this quite easy to sit down on the floor, feel free to do that. It's not something I find easy, this pose. But I have been doing it quite a bit lately and feeling the benefit. So even though my head wants to avoid it because I'm not finding it easy, my body certainly enjoys the results. And we're going to release from that. So coming forward, take the block out of the road, downward facing dog. And that feels pretty yummy. Start to walk the hands back. Half lift here and fold. And just see how that feels in and around the glutes. Lots of space. Walk the hands back. Come down onto your knees and bring the feet through. Lowering to the floor. Take your time. Ponytails out of the road, or in my case, just loads of hair out of the way. Allow yourself to reset here. Bring one knee in at a time and come into a happy baby. And this being our last pose of the class, you might even want to grab your ankles, draw them down, and give a little tug towards the face with the ankles and press the knees out. And just to give those adductors, because we did work on those a little bit in the Utkatasana, just to give them a little release. Just push them knees out with your elbows and your heels in. And then just your standard happy baby. When you're ready, lengthen the legs and release. And what I'm hoping you feel here is a gentle warmth and a lightness in and around the thighs and the glutes, nice and relaxed. So we can still have a strong practice, but with an inclination more towards the stretch and release. And this would be a really nice practice to add on to our Wednesday's class. And I think it's called Finding Strength. I'm not 100% on that, but I think that's what it's called. So, staying here with your mini Shavasana, so staying there for about a minute if you have the time, or stitching this on, and you could even do the Finding Strength that we did on Wednesday, because your body is very prepped and warm for that, and then come back and complete this part of it again to give you a full hour of class. And it would really be a balanced practice because we simply return where we began.